What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, the NFL season, it's nearing the end, but we're going to go ahead and talk about some young guys for the Indianapolis Colts because we know there's quite a few of them. And we're going to talk about if we believe any of these guys can break out in 2025. Now, granted, this is before the draft. This is before free agency. So this is just all going to be guys that are on the team, guys that are considered young guys that we think could elevate into something since they've only been here for a short period of time. Before we get into it, just want to say again that this episode is presented by BetUS. If you guys are looking for a sports book this offseason, look no further than BetUS. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the first name here. And it's one name that I think there's a little bit less names to mention when it comes to the offense, I feel like, but there is a couple of them. And, I think the obvious one here, Cody, is Adonai Mitchell because, he didn't break out last year like a lot of Colts fans presumed that he would. Remember, there was talks about whether or not he was going to be wide receiver 2. And this last season, we saw him very much struggle in this offense for the Indianapolis Colts. There was a lot of drops, just a lot of miscommunications between him and Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson this year. Just didn't really seem to be able to put it all together. And I mean, even if it's whatever you consider to be a breakout, I certainly would like to think that Adonai Mitchell will have a better season next year than what he did this last year.
Yeah, you're right. It just was a lot of miscommunication, I don't even know how to describe it. There were some business decisions that happened where he didn't go for some balls, some miscommunication. The one thing, Derek, that I will say in AD's favor is he did get open a lot. Like that is, if there's one thing that you're like, okay, if he can at least do that, then maybe he can improve on the other things. You'll probably take getting open and being open. I mean, we've talked about how a lot of these Colts receivers, even now have struggled in the past. The Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce has struggled to get open in the past. So having a guy that is a different type of receiver, a guy that can get open and does get open, you're just like, okay, if he puts in the work this offseason, he works with Reggie Wayne and is able to improve his craft and is truly dedicated to his craft, then maybe he can take that leap in 2025. Now, again, Derek, he's going to have to earn it because right now where it currently stands, he is wide receiver 4 on this roster. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, all 3 of the other guys ahead of him, I think you'll put firmly probably in another tier at this point ahead of him. You probably, if you're talking about depth chart, you'll probably have them in pen, the top 3 guys, and then you have Adonai Mitchell, right? So he's got a lot to prove this season for the Indianapolis Colts, and definitely was a forgettable season. And a lot of people shocked at how poor it was in certain ways for Adonai Mitchell. But you know what? It was a poor season. He can come back from this, and I believe, Derek, he's got all the talent to do that. That's why we were so excited when the Colts drafted him, because the talent is evident from Adonai Mitchell. It's just some of the stuff up here you kind of question. And that was probably why he fell in a lot of ways. But the Colts were adamant that, that stuff was overblown, overhyped. So year 1 definitely didn't do him any favors in that department. But he's got a chance to prove here in year number 2 that was just a bad start. But bad starts don't have to equal bad careers. So I do believe that he can turn it around. And I believe if he puts in the proper work and keeps his head down and works, he will. I believe he will. And if he can reach his potential, Derek, I mean, think about the different type of receiver that he is going to be for this team and the matchup nightmare that he could be if he does. And there's a lot to improve on, but if he does continue to improve, if he improves this year and continues that, the next couple years, he could be a very good receiver in this league. I really do believe that because everything is there from a talent standpoint. So, yeah, Adonai Mitchell's a great pick here.
Yeah, 100%. So we move to the other 2 pieces here on the offense, both coming from the same group here. And this is Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves. It's kind of hard. I think some people would even mention that, these guys have already kind of broken out, in a way, because they had a lot of playing time this last year, Cody. But, this could be the situation where, they may potentially break out into permanent roles from this point forward. Again, this was why Chris Ballard drafted these guys last season, right? Because he knew that at some point Ryan Kelly wasn't going to be around, and Ryan Kelly also gets hurt a lot. And then, of course, with Braden Smith, he's had injury problems, and he's coming up on a contract situation soon as well. And, obviously, with the whole personal reason that he's not playing right now, we don't know that yet, but that was after the fact. But now you have that situation where you've got pieces that you have now to be able to fill those holes if it were to come. And yes, both of those guys have played phenomenally as rookies in the situations that they were thrown into. But obviously, this next season, if one or both of those guys gets thrown into a more permanent role with a full off season to do whatever they need to do, imagine how much better they get versus what they already are.
Yeah, in hindsight, it was a brilliant move by the Colts to do that. We were a little bit surprised they took those offensive linemen as early as they did. They took Gonzalez in the third round and they took Bortolini in the fourth round, and we're like, whoa. A little bit surprised there. Not so much about Bortolini, but more about Gonzalez as early as they took him in the draft. But now you're looking, he could very well be your right tackle of the future if whatever is happening. Again, we don't know what's happening, but say worst case scenario for the Colts is Braden Smith hangs it up. Just say that theoretically. I'm not saying I know anything. I have no clue. But just say that. You at least have a guy in there that played significant snaps as a rookie and you believe could be your future at that position, right? And then when you look at that, Derek, if you do bring in, if you do have these two guys being your starters next year, I mean, now you got two cheap options that can play some pretty high, based off of last year, they can play at least competent to some pretty high level ball if they continue to improve. And you got some contract extensions coming up. You got to make a decision on Will Fries. So you could have a pretty young group still, honestly, on your offensive line. I mean, Bernard Ryman's still pretty young in his NFL career. He's still on his rookie deal. Quentin Nelson's really the only guy a substantial amount of money that you're invested in right now. And I think that's what you need to have probably from an offensive line standpoint. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I do think both these guys have potential to be long-term solutions at those positions, because when they got thrown in there, they didn't really look like deer in headlights. I mean, sure, they had their rookie moments like everybody does, but I thought, Derek, generally, it wasn't a Blake Freeland last year or in 2023. It wasn't that situation where they were an absolute liability and looked like they had no clue what they were doing. They actually looked competent, and it got better as the season went along and as they played more snaps. So, yeah, I do believe they could be those breakout candidates. Again, we'll have to see what happens with Ryan Kelly if the Colts indeed do move off of him, which we've seen some reports. The Colts apparently want to go young at center, believing that Bortolini is that guy. And then whatever happens with Braden Smith, you could have an opportunity to have two young guys stepping into prominent role in your offensive line. But yeah, those two guys for sure. So now we're talking about three guys from last year's draft class on the offensive side of the ball. Now moving on to the defensive side of the ball, you've got a couple other names here that you can talk about as well in the defense. First guy is the Colts' first-round pick from last year, Latu. And Derek, he had some issues. I mean, he had some moments, certainly. He had the moments where he looked really, really good. I kind of felt like he hit a rookie wall a little bit down the stretch of the season, and you didn't really hear him. He had like a couple games where he looked really, really good. Kind of that Lions game, I think after that really didn't do a whole lot. So he's got an opportunity here now with a new defensive coordinator and Lou Anarumo changing up the defense. I mean, we've seen what the Bengals have been able to do, in the past, getting after the quarterback. You've seen the guys that they've been able to bring in and have success doing so. So what do you think about Latu going into year two now, having the same defensive line coach but a different defensive coordinator here? And what do you think it could mean for him here going into year two?
Yeah, Latu certainly not having the type of season that a lot of Colts fans believed that he would. Obviously Ballard boosted about getting him in the first round, was very excited about it. there's obvious reason for hope when it comes to Latu. Still a young player, still going to try to figure it out. But it certainly wasn't the performance that you were hoping you would get. Now, obviously, with Lou Anarumo coming in and a whole new defensive scheme, who knows how he'll look? People again likened the situation to Trey Hendrickson in a way, and will Latu start to pick it up a notch, kind of like what Trey had happen for him? I don't know. I doubt that would happen, but again, you can definitely see some good things come from Latu, and you certainly hope that he continues to build upon that rookie year. Because again, this is a guy that the Indianapolis Colts, they put a lot of faith and stuff into, and this is a guy that you're hoping will become that next great defensive end that the Indianapolis Colts have been looking for the last decade.
And he had a lot of production in college, so that makes you think it can translate to the NFL level. And you're hopeful that in year 2, he does take a leap here and takes it up another level in a lot of ways. So, yep. Latu, the first guy here. Another guy the Colts drafted on defense who actually saw some snaps here his rookie season and may be in for another prominent role depending what the Colts do at linebacker, Jalen Carlies. And Derek, the guy that out of all the linebackers, he definitely is the one that excels in coverage. I mean, a former safety in college, so he has some experience there, but was really learning the position in his rookie season, a new position. So when it comes to that, Derek, what do you kind of expect from Jalen Carlies, and could he be in for a larger role in 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we actually even get into Jalen Carlies, just want to say again, guys, this episode is presented by BetUS. If we're looking for a sports book this offseason, look no further than BetUS. They actually have their Super Bowl odds going on right now. So if you guys are getting one last chance at the NFL betting scene, you guys can talk about some of the numbers between the games. And they don't just have game odds, they have coin tosses, MVPs, winner for certain positions, the length of the national anthem. I know a lot of people love to bet on that. So, there's a lot of cool things to go into it. And of course, guys, they have more than just football. They have basketball, they have baseball, they have martial arts, they have hockey, they have all these other things that you guys can use to take advantage of BetUS. So make sure to check out BetUS today, guys. And of course, use their promo code YouTube150. Get a 150% sign up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit and a 125% sign up bonus on your next 2. Just make sure to use that promo code YouTube150. But of course, guys, always bet responsibly. Yeah, so Jalen Carlies, very interesting player here. I think deserves a prominent role in some way because again, Carlies, a former safety that is moving to linebacker, he's going to be that coverage guy that you're really looking for at the linebacker spot to try to take over. And if you're going to have one guy to do it, Carlies feels like the one to do it. And in minimum time that you've seen him play, he's actually done relatively well. So I would definitely like to, see Carlies get more of a role and be that coverage linebacker that the Indianapolis Colts are desperately looking for right now, because right now it's not a good situation for them.
Yeah, Derek, and the crazy thing is, that's kind of it when it comes to some of these young guys. I mean, you could kind of throw in guys like Juju Brents. You could throw in some of these other young guys on the defensive line, but there's really not a ton of guys right now for the Indianapolis Colts, even looking to 2023. I mean, Anthony Richardson, potentially, I guess, but who knows there. Josh Downs is already broken out. We've already talked about Blake Freeland, and then a lot of those other guys later are not on the roster anymore. So, really, there's not a ton of names here for young guys for the Indianapolis Colts right now. Either they've broken out or we really haven't talked about them a whole lot, or they can't stay healthy. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. We don't have a lot of faith, honestly, in some of these guys, which is kind of wild. And Jalen Jones as well is also, I think, broken out in year 2. So, yeah, it's kind of weird, man. It's kind of a weird spot you're in right now. And obviously the Colts are going to infuse some new talent here whether in free agency or also in the draft coming up in April. So this is definitely subject to change here, Derek. But yeah, as it stands right now, there's a few names here, but not a ton of guys here for the Indianapolis Colts here going into 2025. Any other names that I forgot to mention that you might throw in there as well?
Not I wouldn't even throw a lot more into it right now. I know that there's a few young guys that we could, throw into this list that is going to be interesting on whether or not they're going to transcend into a new player or not. I know you and I were debating on a few different players off air on, if they're considered one a young player, two whether or not they like already, transcended or if there's another level to their game. But yeah, it's all going to come down to, these coaches and, does a defensive scheme change affect these guys a little bit? I wouldn't worry so much about I'm more confident in guys like Adonai Mitchell and Gonsalves and Bortolini to take their games up. But it is going to be interesting now with the Colts going with a completely new defensive identity than what we've seen in the last decade for this team, just how much impact that will actually have on some of the decisions that are made and how some of these guys play.
Yeah, and we've said it. There's probably going to be some pretty decent changes in certain areas on this defense, whether it's from obviously scheme, but also personnel as well. So we'll have to see on that. But guys, this is just some players from this previous season. Haven't quite broken out yet that we believe could be on the brink or would be some candidates to do so. So let us know, guys, your thoughts in the comments down below. Derek already said it. This stream is powered by BetUS, guys. You be sure to go check them out, all that they do over there. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. Guys, we are rapidly approaching 20,000 subscribers on here. So if you'd help us out, we would greatly appreciate that. But again, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.